Video by Reforge Gaming. I'm going to be reacting to a Diablo 4 devs respond video from the Comeback Kids. The link is below, as well as their name is highlighted. You can just click on their name. They have been creating really great Diablo 4 content, so be sure to check out their channel and support the original video. They basically have a really good just run through of a bunch of responses to questions and criticisms from the devs. I'm going to be reacting to it, so make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel because these live streams happen all throughout the week. This is a more live interaction style reaction. So I'm going to end the previous video. It was about Cyberpunk. Is it having its No Man's Sky moment? I'm going to bring everybody over from that video. Make sure as you come over from that video that you smash the like button. That will help us. Let's dive right in.
Diablo 4 just got some fresh news hot right off the press. We have a first inside look at some developer updates, including legendaries, leveling speed, class balancing, a huge developer update live stream coming up this month in April, some key player stats in the beta, and the map size in comparison to the live game come June. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, the Comeback Kids have done a total of 3 Diablo 4 game copy giveaways so far, so don't forget to stick around until the end of the video to see how you can earn a free copy for yourself.
Yeah, make sure and support these guys. Like I said, they create really good content. I've really appreciated their format and their style. I don't feel like their videos have a lot of fluff. They get sort of like right to the meat of what's going on. So they're not gonna do that thing where that you feel like they're like intentionally dragging videos out. Like I feel like they've done a very good job. Asmongold has reacted to a lot of their content, so that is that's another reason that they've been getting some heat and some attention. And I think that it's been well deserved. I think they make good content. So check them out. Maybe even try and win a copy of Diablo 4. And make sure a bunch of you guys just got redirected from the previous stream, man. Smash that like button. Give us our first 100 likes. I don't know what happened. There we go.
Okay, starting right off, we have tons of people from the open beta talking and asking questions about if gaining XP in the Diablo 4 beta is accelerated, or possibly if it's going to be the normal speed they will gain XP in the full version. And Rod Ferguson replied, "The game balance is a journey, not a destination." Now,
before they chime in, a lot of what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to react more directly to like what the devs are saying. I'm obviously going to let the Comeback Kids have their comments as well, but I think this is an interesting response, right? Because this guy's basically saying, is gaining XP accelerated, or is this the normal speed that we'll gain in the full version? He's like, yeah, game balance is a journey, not a destination. I mean, that's not an answer. That's not an answer, Rod. I think what that means is that we're never gonna land on like a permanent decision on XP earn rate, which would mean you're likely going to see this change throughout time. So it'll be up, it'll be down, they'll tweak it. There'll probably be moments in the games where they'll tweak it. Now, something that I hope that this is referencing to is their willingness to adjust also resistances. I think Diablo 4 gameplay is harmed very much by, as you level, the enemies resist your attacks more. So, I was a level 20 fighting level 20 enemies. My wife was level 10, and she was absolutely obliterating everything in front of me. She was killing everything super fast, and everything was going very slow for me. So I would like them to look at tweaking that as well. I owe you guys... so far, I owe you guys 15 members. We're close to 100 total members on the day, and I'll owe you 20. I will gift those in a moment. I can piggyback off somebody if they want to, kickstart it. But and you guys can do the same thing over on Kick. So I think this answers it's an acceptable one, but this answer also sort of, I think, gets at the heart of maybe some of people's concerns, because I do think there's people that are really concerned about sort of the nature of game balance. Let's give us some music here. There we go. I think people are right to be a little bit concerned that, the game felt a little unprepared. I know there's videos out there that are claiming, they're sort of claiming that like there's a rushed feel to the game. I know Asmongold reacted to a video recently about this, like basically somebody saying they're rushing this game to market. This game is not ready. This game isn't prepared. And what Rod is saying here, I think some people might look at that and say, oh, that's a good philosophy to have. Others might look at this and say, Well, that's a nice way to say that your game's just not ready for market, right? You guys have got a lot of work to do. So I want to see what the comeback kids think about this answer.
Now, this isn't a direct answer about what we are actually getting come launch, but it could lead us to the point that it is going to be different come launch day. And something to significantly help with the leveling speed, as well as the way you kill creatures and bosses, is going to be at the rate at which you get legendary armor and weapons, because as you know, once you get some of your key legendary aspects, it's a major power spike for most builds. If you all played some of the beta, you could agree that you would get legendaries at quite a faster rate. A Twitter post directed at Rod Ferguson asks, can you guys please confirm if drop rates are increased for the beta? It takes a simple yes or no and alleviates some concerns people have. Rod Ferguson.
So Rod says they are tuned higher. You know, yes, to give a fuller experience of the beta, a better test during the beta. So this is going to do a couple of things that I'm kind of worried about. Number one, I think people are going to not know this, right? There are so many people that played the Diablo IV open beta that have no idea that this was a thing. And they're going to think one of two things. They're going to think, well, my gosh, this game is too generous. Or they're going to think, well, that was just right. Or, oh, that was really awesome. Well, then when the game launches and that's not happening, you're obviously going to satisfy the more hardcore, audience members that are like, this is awesome, man. It was too generous during the beta. But I think you're going to have a lot of people that don't quite understand why they're suddenly not getting the drop rates that they were getting during the beta. I worry that maybe they should have only done this for the closed beta. That's more of your plugged-in user base. That's the people that are a little bit more aware. That's the people that are probably paying attention to Twitter, Reddit, blog posts, things like that. And I think that that's fair for people to say, hey, I'm more plugged in, and I expect this to be in here, and I expect these changes, or I would like things to be tweaked. But to the average player, they're not going to know. They're not going to know that that was a thing, and I'm concerned about what that's going to do to player feedback and player response. I think that could be a significant problem, because I liked getting lots of drops in the beta, but even I felt like it was extreme. Like, I'm usually the guy who's a champion for generosity. I'm like, bro, constantly shower me with stuff, constantly shower me with loot. Let me constantly have things dropping on the ground. I've always said that generosity is not the enemy of engagement. It is the promoter of it. I think people tend to engage with games more when they feel like they're getting a ton of generous treatment, right? Like when they feel like, oh, I'm constantly going to be getting stuff dropping on the ground. I generally think that generosity is the right way for a game to lean. And that's a concern here, is that they leaned really heavy on generosity in the beta. And then when the game comes out, people are going to say, where in the world is all the loot? This game is all of a sudden being really stingy. And here's my thought on this. I don't think you need to be stingy until you're in the end game. There's no reason to turn down drop rates until people are min-maxing or until people are going for the best possible build. And here's one of the reasons why. I actually think one of their game design decisions warrants the drop rate, okay? So I mentioned it a little bit ago, their philosophy on resistance, okay? So they didn't want to just keep adding to an enemy's health bar and an enemy's damage, and they went with a resistance strategy instead. So as you level up, the enemies tend to resist your attacks more. And what this does is it sets up a way of you're supposed to outfit your character as you level to overcome those resistances. Well, the problem with that is the general forward momentum of a game like this, when I go from level 15 to 20, okay? When I go from level 15 to 20, I'm moving at a pretty fair clip. I'm not stopping to min-max. I'm not going back to town, or I'm not stopping to grind a particular activity to get the best possible gear. I'm tending to just sort of follow the green arrows and then go to the next thing. And then that makes the resistances a bit of a problem, because if I'm not min-maxing, if I'm not going for the best possible build at level 18, I'm going to feel significantly weaker than I did when I was 15, right? And then when you get 20 and 20 and all of that up, you're constantly going to feel that, right? You're going to feel like, oh my gosh, like this is actually getting, everything feels spongy. Everything feels like really, really strong. It doesn't really feel all that enjoyable. So I'm actually going to use that system of resistance to say being generous during the first 100 levels isn't going to hurt anything, because you're going to give me opportunities to get better gear, better power, and have more footing, instead of feeling like, what in the world? How am I even going to get anywhere? You know, everything is taking a really, really long time to level up. So I actually think the generosity actually couples with the resistance system better, even though I think they need to tune down the resistance system. I think the resistance system makes leveling feel like you're getting weaker. I don't think you should feel that pain until you get to the end game and you're leveling up or raising the world tier. So NZ Sky, hey, I think that you're one of the guys that makes the video for the Comeback Kids. I told everybody at the beginning of this video, I was like, man, check these guys out. They make great content. Asmongold's reacted to a few of their vids. Their content's always very, to the point, well-structured. So appreciate you stopping by. Guys, they're linked in the description below. You can even click on their name the way that YouTube does that now. You don't even have to look for their channel. You can click their name in the description of this video. And we're combing through their video. It's official class changes, endgame, skill progression, and legendaries. Sort of reacting to not just their video, but what the devs are saying. And so they did admit that drop rates were tuned higher for a more fuller experience and to better test during the beta. And I obviously just outlined a bunch of my concerns about what that means for people that have no clue that they did this, as well as the fact that you're really setting things up, I think, for frustration with the resistance system. So let's continue watching.
Replied that they are tuned higher, and yes, it's to give a fuller experience and better test during the beta. So pretty much what this means is that for beta only, they tuned up the XP as well as the legendary drop rate, so they can allow players to test more to see what might be a little overtuned and what legendaries and classes overall might be undertuned without them. This can lead to a lot of reasons why some classes feel weaker and more reliant on gear and aspects than some of the other classes.
It's a great slide right here. Yeah, my time with the Sorcerer, and I thought somebody made this point, very concisely when they said, I didn't have to really do anything. The first couple levels of my Sorcerer was great and felt great. And my first couple levels of the Barbarian and the Druid were terrible. Like, I didn't have to think. I just got to play and try stuff out with the Sorcerer, and I had fun. And there were definitely, some winners and some losers in that regard. And we hope to see that tweaked and balanced. Comeback Kids are in chat. Thanks, bro. Love your stuff. Amazing content. Hey, I appreciate that. If you guys ever want to come on, and do a show about Diablo, would love to have you guys come on as a guest. I threw you a subscribe. I thought I was already subscribed to your channel. I wonder if I subscribed to one of my other accounts. But just through the Comeback Kids a subscribe, guys. They're in chat. I think their content is well worth watching. Again, it's well structured. This video alone has over 100,000 views because I just think they get to the point. They've seen good growth around Diablo, so I'm sure they're going to keep pushing and covering it. We obviously do variety here, and so we love to cover Diablo, and we love to play it, and they, I think, are a very, very good information source for Diablo 4. And this is where I want official response. I want concrete information before the Diablo 4 release date. What are you going to do with the Barbarian? What are you going to do with the Druid? Is the Sorcerer fine as is? Because that's the other dilemma that they're going to run into is, please don't chop down the Sorcerer. Sorcerer felt great. Please don't chop down the Necro. The Necro felt great. Now, people were saying Necro was broken and overpowered. And I'm like, or was the Necro just good? Like, was the Necro a good class and a good build, or was it actually broken? Was it going to hurt the game, right? And really, I honestly feel like often you only really need to be concerned about a build or a class being broken in the end game. Who really cares if you're flying through the main game, if you're flying through dungeon bosses and stuff, and you're level 27? Well, who cares about that, right? Oh yeah, it's 22, man. I was just smoking through the game. It only really matters if that quote-unquote overpowered status carries over into the end game. That's obviously a likelihood because of the way they scale in games like this. So there's a high likelihood that if the base version of Sorcerer or Necro or something is overpowered, then it will likely scale up and be that way in the end game. Could somebody gift a single member? I'm gonna piggyback off. I owe you guys 15 right now, and I'll keep this up during the stream, since you guys are so close to hitting 100 on the day. We only need 18 more. I'll owe you a whole 20. I'll owe you an entire 20 if we can do that. The Necro should never be the best build in a Diablo game. Hey. That's enough Necro slander, okay? That's enough of that. All right? All right, let's check out what they have to say.
A couple perfect examples of this is going to be between the Barbarian and the Druid. The second both of these classes were available to everyone, news was flooded across YouTube, Reddit, and Twitter, stating that they were simply very weak and underpowered while leveling, which is going to be a major part of your journey and playthrough of Diablo IV. And this is something they're definitely looking to avoid. Now, I'm sure all of you have seen the clips of Barbarians completely one-shotting elite bosses and flying through dungeons, as well as Druids performing very well with all their legendary aspects and gear upgraded. But this is not going to be a realistic scenario at all to be facing in Diablo until the near end game.
This is an excellent point. That's a very good point, and that's something that I continue to try to draw attention to, was that you can't run to that excuse. Oh, well, if you go and get all this stuff, the Druid's not terrible and the Barbarian's not terrible. Listen. The first 50 levels of a character should literally feel like easy street fun. Like, you shouldn't feel like you need to stop and grind at level 25. Like, I don't think anybody was thinking through that as a comeback, right? Haha, the comeback kids. As a comeback, that's not really a comeback. Like, oh yeah, the Druid and the Barbarian are weak. Well, actually, if you spend a bunch of time grinding at level 25 and get this, and outfit this, then you're going to find that he's actually quite strong. What are you even talking about? No one's going to do that. No one's stopping at 25 to min-max. No one's stopping at 25 to grind for gear. You're only doing that because the beta caps you, and you're basically treating the beta as if it had its own microcosmic endgame. Like, that can't be the way that the game is approached. Hey, somebody ordered some coffee 2 minutes ago. They ordered a bag of light, a bag of the Frickmas, and a tumbler, a Team Light tumbler. Thank you so much for doing that. I appreciate that so much. I wonder if the OP Sorcerer in the beta testing just starts getting one shot at the higher difficulties and you see the Barb and the Druid start to shine. Okay, but here's the thing. I don't think that's how the game should feel. Oh, well, this all sorts itself out in the end game. Oh, so the Druid and the Barbarian are going to feel like crap for 100 levels? Oh, yeah, the Druid and the Barb, they really turn the corner at level 75, and then the Sorcerer really gets leveled out. Now, come on. That's not how it should work. Scaling a class and scaling a game's balance should not be on, like, unique bell curves for each class. Like, yeah, it's really bad, and then whoop, and then it gets good at this level. It should be a steady trajectory of increasing power and efficacy and potential builds as you're playing through the game. Like, you should never say, oh yeah, dude, that class is real bad until level 50, 48, 72, whatever, some random number, right? Oh, well, that's when such and such thing unlocks, or, oh, that's when you can really start to do XYZ. Now, there is something that the Druid doesn't have access to, and I believe the Comeback Kids talk about it in this video. So there is something that they don't have access to, and they'll get that, you know, in the full game that might change things. But I don't know. I think the base version of the Druid just felt so bad even before those things hit. You never want, let me phrase it this way. You never want potential power out there in the future being the solution to feeling weak in the present. That's not how an RPG should feel. You should never feel like my character sucks, my character is weak, and the potential power out there in the future is the solution to you feeling weak. No. Your character should feel good. There should be a reasonable sense of power and efficacy in the initial stages of the game, and that should mushroom, grow, and expand. It should never feel like you're solving a class's deficiency at level 12, or you're solving a class's deficiency at level 75. That's stupid. That's a terrible way to treat your class balance. 100% Lono, all classes have to be enjoyable throughout the main campaign. Right, because you have to think about the accessible nature of that. You're basically going to tell everybody, don't play Druid, don't play Barbarian, and then you're going to have with everybody running around on the same class, and that's terrible. What, you want to go run dungeons with your buddies or fight open world bosses, and it's nothing but like Necros and Sorcerers? No, that would be awful. That's not what you want. You don't want a flattened out diversity scale. You want to have a good spectrum of class representation in Diablo 4, so that way what that does is that even passively communicates something to the people playing. If I'm out in the open world or I'm grinding dungeons and I'm seeing other people on other classes and they're crushing it, that adds replay value that is subversive and underneath the surface, because that makes you tuck that away and say, bro, that guy was crushing it as his druid. That guy was just absolutely thrashing as a barbarian, and that makes you feel like I want to do that later, right? I want to come back and play that class later. I didn't mean that they should only be good at the end game, but just a class that trades some damage for survivability is what I meant. Right, Coral, I kind of know what you were driving at, but what you're saying can be true, but that doesn't mean that the early game needs to be in the state that it's in. If you get to the late game and what really makes the barbarian shine is survivability, and then the sorcerer has sort of an innate weakness and they sort of feel like trade-offs, I think that's fine, but I also feel like if that's overstated in the early game, nobody's going to want to pick the barbarian. No, you know what I'm saying? You weren't saying make them wait to the end game, but that's kind of what it feels like, and that's what it felt like in the beta. It feels like I have to wait. I have to wait all the way to the end game. See what I said above? Wheezy says, my problem with Diablo 4 is the skills feeling good is tied to legendaries, not your skill tree. Instead of legendaries refining my experience, they define my experience. Well, there's different philosophies about this, and this is obviously a place where we could have some debate. I actually think that's a good thing, and here's why. I think driving people to chase loot and look for certain pieces of loot and making that loot sort of central to the power fantasy, I think is a happy marriage with a skill tree and a Paragon board, and here's why. I think that's more psychologically motivated than a static skill tree build. Because typically what happens is when they lean heavily on the skill tree and the Paragon board, then you just go and read the guide, go find the guide, pick the best build, and then the legendary merely enhances what's already there. What that does is that roots the power fantasy in a menu instead of in the game. Now, there's room for disagreement here. There's other people that would say, no, I don't like that. I actually think from the player incentivization and the content loop enhancing effect, I think it's far better to have me grinding for loot, and when I get that loot, it completely changes the game. We see this in drops in games like Destiny. We see this with drops in games like Borderlands. You finally get a really good drop, and that item, that thing, gives you a greater sense of power, gives you a greater sense of strength, and you can play in a particular way. This is opinion, right? My opinion is rooting the player power fantasy in a menu where I go pick all these great builds and I make all these pre-calculated decisions that has nothing to do with the surprise of an item drop or something dropping in the game that motivates me to try out a new build. It's all established ahead of time. I just go in and click. Okay, I got the best build. Now if I get these legendaries, they'll enhance my build. And my build out of the box is totally fine. If you want a healthy content loop, if you want a thriving world of engagement, if you want people going out and feeling that player incentivization to grind for loot drops, the loot has to be better and more important than just enhancing some build that you found on Reddit. And I know that people are going to disagree. They're going to say, well, no, that's not Diablo. That's not a traditional way of playing. That's not an RPG way of playing. You know, that puts too much emphasis on the loot and less on my choices. I think there's room for disagreement here. I think both approaches philosophically to player incentivization, I think both are worthy of being built, worthy of being played in a particular way or established in a particular way, but I don't think one is right and one is wrong. I think it literally comes down to player preference and what's going to motivate you to play. I'm always the loot guy. I'm going to go chase the loot. I'm going to go chase the goodies. I want those dings on the ground. I want to see the green arrows. I want to see that new ability arise from some great drop that I got. And if they're empowering you to chase things the way that they seem to be indicating, you should have a pretty good amount of player volition and not have this sense of like, oh, I can't get anything, or oh, I can't get it to drop. Now, keep in mind, I'm consistent in my position here, because everything I'm saying, it goes hand in hand with a generous system. Generosity is the key to a system like this. Oh, for sure, I respectfully disagree. Yeah, we're different players. We're motivated by different things, and I'm here to tell you. I think more people are like me. I think if they hear this sword, this staff, this helmet is going to give me this ability, it's going to make my build awesome, or it's going to do this thing, they're going to go and chase that, and that's going to feel dope, and that's going to feel satisfying to them. And I think less people are motivated by, well, you do this build, and this build's awesome out of the box, you just need the legendaries to enhance it. I do. I think more players, and this is in line with something that we've been talking about with Diablo IV. Diablo IV is clearly being made for the masses. It's being made for the masses. This is the first time in Diablo history that they're launching the game simultaneously on PC and consoles, and they're considering that. They're considering the audience that's going to be diving in. And the audience that's going to be diving in will probably primarily be motivated by loot and drops in the game, and not by some build that they found on the internet, not by some build that, they feel like this is the only way to play. Borderlands 2, a certain build was awesome, but you just needed to get to the right gear to be able to fully use it. I hate feeling weak until I get a specific legendary. Well, and I certainly would not be okay with that, Wheezy. I don't think a system that leans on loot necessitates feeling weak until you get a certain legendary. I don't. I think that that's a likelihood in the end game, but see, this again is why everything I just said marries perfectly with generosity is not the enemy of engagement, it is the promoter of it. Generosity keeps that from happening. It does. Because you would get the legendary that would make you feel strong, you would get the legendary that would make you feel pretty awesome, but then you'd go for the better version of it. You'd go for the primo version of it. You'd start min-maxing on that particular legendary because you got one, gives you the ability, gives you that sense of strength and power. Like, personally, I hate the Diablo IV skill trees. While I agree with what you're saying, says Sam C., the loot grind depends on the amount of time that you put into the game. If dropping 100 hours in the game to grind for a staff, not everyone can do that. And what you're saying dovetails beautifully with my little rant or my little monologue about generosity. Those two things come together like a happy marriage, and here's why. Let's say you have the player that can't put in 100 hours, but then you have another player who can put in 100 hours. Guess what's going to happen? Generosity meets them both where they are. The guy that can't put in 100 hours, he's going to get the staff, and he's going to be thrilled that he got it. He's going to get the ability. He's going to get that sense of power. He's going to get that sense of strength, and there you go. He's off to the races. He's happy. He's able to move on to something else. The guy that's going to put in 100 hours, you know what he's going to get from a generous system? He's going to get the best possible version of that dadgum staff. He's going to feel rewarded for his time. He's going to feel like his investment was respected, and he can now move on. And he's not falling into the trap that Wheezy said he doesn't want to fall into. Like, I don't want to feel weak until I get the legendary. I'm telling you, this type of system can work. You lean on the loot for the power, you lean on the loot for the abilities, you lean on the legendaries, and you have a generous system. 100%. That's the way I would build it. We got to keep watching. This is supposed to be a reaction video. I went off on a tangent. Again, be sure to check out the original video. If you don't want all of my interjection and ramblings and monologue, it's a nice, short, concise video. Check out the Comeback Kids. They're linked below in the description.
On launch, you're going to be looking and scraping for legendaries, and unless these issues and problems are addressed, these classes are going to struggle much more than their peers, the Rogue, Sorcerer, and Necromancer. One of the biggest signs of these two classes in particular that alleviates some of the stress and pressure is the fact that they didn't have access to their quest storylines yet to give them additional features to the class themselves. Rod Ferguson was asked, "I need to know how good is Druid after level 25?" In which he replied, "It's fun. You have to get into Scotland in order to use the Druid specialization of the Spirit Animal Attunement." This is pretty...
Okay, here's the thing. I'm gonna let the Comeback Kids respond to this and have their own thoughts. I don't think this is a response that makes me feel good. I don't think this is a response that makes me feel good. This makes it sound like, oh yeah, once you at level at level 25, oh yeah, or you have to get into this place, and then you get the specialization, and you get the spiritual. No. Don't make my character limp and say, don't worry, we give you crutches at level 12. No, you made my character limp. Don't break my ankle and call it a dance move. Like, no. If my character sucks in the early stages, no one's going to pick Druid. No one's going to pick Barbarian, except for like the hardcore and the committed. Oh, we give you crutches at level 12 so that you're not limping anymore. No, nope. No, what you give me at level 12 should enhance my existing power. What you give me at level 12 should make me have a greater sense of strength and power in the world. You shouldn't create an endemic limp or weakness in a class that you solve later. I think that's bad design. Weezy says, to be honest, I'm glad we disagree on this. We've been agreeing way too much lately. I know. Like, fight me. Fight me, brother. You got to get the thumb ratios up and support this guy, says Pennywise. It takes 2 seconds to help more than people know. Yeah, guys, take a second and give us 200 likes on the video. We only need 50 more. There's plenty of people here. If you've never been here before, I am usually in this scene doing a talk show. We're streaming on Kick. We're streaming on YouTube. We've had a huge member goal today. If you guys hit every 25, I give 5. And I've already gifted 10 of the 15 that I owe you. We only need 17 more members on YouTube, and I'll owe you another 10, not just 5. So, yeah, I don't think you want to create endemic weaknesses, problems, or shortcomings and be like, well, we solve it later when you level up. No, thank you. I don't want to play that character then. Like, think of it this way. Have you ever watched a show and people are like, it gets really good in season 3? It gets really good in season 3. You got to watch season 1 and 2, and then it gets really good in season 3. What do you typically feel when someone says that? Do you feel a sense of elation and excitement, or do you internally groan and say, oh, I don't want to do that? So I got to suffer and be miserable and unhappy for how long before things get better? Well, come on, man. You know, are you going to go to an amusement park and be like, listen, you got to ride these 4 rides first before you can ride the really good rides, and these 4 rides, they suck. They're terrible. They're run down. I don't want to do that. I'm trying to play video games, man. I don't want to have levels 1 through 20 be terrible. Oh yeah, it gets really good at hour 28. So what, that means 27 hours of drudgery? Get the frick out of here. Sounds like character development to me. Well, no. Yeah, in TV shows, people typically say that. They're like, yeah, it's really slow. You mean they're doing character development and narrative and they're not just having explosions and sword fights every episode? I also don't want to one-shot everyone at level 1 because then where is the power growth? You're just trying to race to max level in whatever the endgame grind is. Oh, well, certainly, Tony, certainly. Like, I don't want to feel like I'm an absolute god from moment 1, one-shotting everyone. I've always said this to people. I could give you a weapon in a game that kills everything in one shot because its power is 999999999. And I would say, hey man, that thing is technically really strong. Don't you feel really strong? And you would say, no. Why? Well, you're not overcoming anything. You're not overcoming any challenges. Imagine booting up Elden Ring and you hack the game and you give yourself a sword and it one-shots everything. Would you feel really strong and powerful? No. I remember on New Game Plus, we came up with some crazy twin blade build. I went into Radahn's, fight. I hit him 7 times and he was dead. I didn't feel like, yeah, dude, I'm so strong. I was like, that was boring. There was no intensity. There was no potential loss. There was no threat on my life. It was a joke. And so certainly you don't want characters to feel busted strong from moment 1, but they should feel good. There's a difference between feeling overpowered and feeling good, and I think that's what's getting lost in the shuffle. Oh yeah, everybody loves Necro and Sorcerer. They're OP. Well, okay, but did they like them because they were OP, or did they like them because they were efficient classes and you could kind of play the game at a good rhythm? When I was playing as the sorcerer, I didn't feel like I was one-shotting everything. I was combining my abilities. I was using this thing where I would freeze people around me, and then if they died while they were frozen, it gave my freeze ability a faster refresh. So I created this like cyclical sort of feeding off of my own abilities build if I played appropriately. I didn't feel like I was one-shotting everything at all, especially with their resistance system. Who cares if you're one-shotting stuff at level 1? By the time you get to level 2, 3, 4, and 5, those resistances should be kicking in. You shouldn't be one-shotting anything. You shouldn't be. So, all right, let's keep watching. I appreciate the engagement, the disagreement, the back and forth, the debate, and the dialogue. Give me 26 more likes on this video. You guys that lurk, remember, this is the second stream of the day. Minimize chat and smack that thumbs up.
Pretty much Rod Ferguson in a nice way saying that everyone needs to relax because you haven't even seen the class with its Spirit Boon power yet. So we can definitely assume that the Druid and Barbarian are going to get some definite power spikes heading into launch with having access to their full class.
And I'm really, really worried. I'm glad that the Comeback Kids said it in that way. I'm really worried that the devs are going to lean on that. And they're going to say, listen, we can't restructure this entire class. We can't restructure this entire build. We got to have to leave it as is. And that means that they're going to get, as he referred to it, they're going to get those power spikes. And there you go. That's our answer. Well, I don't think that's a very good answer. Wheezy says, this is where I stand. Let's debate this if you'd like. The reason I want my build to start okay and my legendaries to make me specialize how I feel is I want to know if I even like the build. Hypothetically, imagine I'm grinding for a legendary to finally enhance this skill, and then I get it, and I realize I hate the skill. I'd rather decide personally, hey, I like this skill, but I want to make poison flies or hit, or maybe I'd rather it creates a mirror image of me, etc. Just my 2 cents thoughts. I think that's probably one of the best pushbacks somebody could come up with. That's difficult to argue against, but I'm going to attempt to argue against it, right? I don't think requiring you to experiment and try different things out is a reason to give you access to everything from the beginning, or give you the ability to, to have just almost like an a la carte, pick everything and see what you like, right? I don't necessarily think that is a compelling argument. It's a good argument. I think it's logically sound to say, well, hey, I may spend all this time grinding for a sword that gives me Lightning Slam. I'm just making up an ability. And you get Lightning Slam and you end up not liking it. And you're like, oh, I wasted all that time getting Lightning Slam. Here again, I've already have the answer to this problem. Generosity. If you can get that sword in a reasonable amount of time and you find out you don't like Lightning Slam, guess what you're not going to do? You're not going to grind for the best version of the sword with Lightning Slam. You're going to move on to something else. You're going to say, well, my buddy said that Lightning Slam is kind of butt, and he said that I should go with Fire Fists instead. And so you go and you grind for something that's going to give you Fire Fists. And you see what I'm saying? Generosity solves that problem. I don't think there's anything wrong. In fact, I think that would be a very good system where you go out and you actively experiment. You're like, okay, I'm going to get this sword. I know it has Lightning Slam. I want to try it out. And you get Lightning Sword because the system's pretty generous and you get a pretty good drop and a pretty good drop rate. And you get it and you try it and you don't like it. Perfect. That's a player experience that I don't think is necessarily a bad one. Now you can divert your attention to something else. Maybe there's an axe that does something that you were considering getting. Like, well, I'm going to get this axe and it does whirlwind fire. And then you go and get that. And you end up liking that more. And now, because the system is very generous, you're going to go for that axe until you get the best possible version. See, generosity is like a one-size-fits-all solution to so many of the hypothetical problems that people throw out. Like, in your system, and here's what I'm going to do is I'm going to push back on your system now. In your system, Wheezy, because you're already pretty strong and the legendary is going to enhance an already strong build, you have to be stingy in that paradigm. You have to be stingy. Why? Because you got to that level of strength by pushing buttons in a menu, right? You leveled up and you went in and pushed buttons in a menu, made a really strong build, and then the legendaries like the capstone. Well, if that's the case, now you got to be super rigid. You got to be super stingy. Because if you're not stingy, then that guy's going to be done. You're done. You got your legendary. You just capstoned your build. That's the end of that. In my system, it's loot-based power, generosity-based motivation to either get it and be happy as a casual or get it and grind for the best version as a hardcore player. My system has a harmony. I worry that your system would have to lean on being stingy and withholding, because if not, that person is done. They're like, yep, got my legendary. It capstoned my build. My build is where all my strength comes from. Too long didn't read, says Wheezy. Drop down damage bonuses on aspects from 100% to 300% to 10% to 30% and make these be additive, not multiplicative. That way, additional skill points invested in the skill tree will have more of an impact. I wish legendaries or most equipment didn't have massive 200 plus bonuses. It just artificially inflates damage numbers and essentially makes every other build and skill that it doesn't buff useless. Yeah, but see, that's not a problem. I think people are looking through the wrong end of the telescope. People are looking through the wrong end of the telescope. If you're going to say, oh, that item gives me too much power, and because it gives me too much power, it makes all the other builds weak. Well, what that tells me is I have that build has a great identity, right? That build has a great identity. That means when I build into that, that's how I'm going to play. Those are the abilities I'm going to lean on. You can't be buffet style power fantasy like, well, every power is great, every power is awesome. Oh, those look great, creature. Those look really, really good. So I think you got to be careful with that. I really, really do. I get where you're coming from, but I feel like your system has to rely on being stingy, and then your system also enables me to dip into all these different powers instead of being like, oh, I'm going to be a Bone Spear Necro. I'm going to be a Lightning Slam Druid. I'm going to be a Fire Whirlwind Barbarian. You see what I'm saying? It's the same problem that Diablo 3 had, where like 90% of the player's power seems to come directly from what you're wearing. Sadly, Blizzard didn't learn anything from the mistakes made in Diablo 3. Presumption that it's a mistake. Opinion that it's a mistake. Oh yeah, ARPGs are about loot, but the way things are now, you're basically forced into a certain set of items depending on what build you're playing, because the aspects they provide are mandatory for your build to function. Very little player choice remains in terms of itemization, i.e. Blizzard decides what you should wear if you're playing a WW Barb. Well, baked into all those presumptions and assumptions is just a lack of self-awareness, hypocrisy. What do you mean taking away player choice? If Blizzard sets up what certain builds are and how certain builds work, and that's where all your power comes from, you're not choosing anything. That's the illusion of choice. You're going through and dinging the little boxes and putting the little abilities to 5 out of 5s and 4s out of 5s. That's not anything that you're actually doing. Choosing to go for loot, chase loot, grind loot, put on the loot, got my power, that's player volition being permanently tethered and attached to gameplay. Going into your menu and picking a god tier build that the devs created, that's an illusion of choice. You're not choosing anything any more than the guy that goes for the loot that's been dictated to be the strong by the devs of the same. It's the same thing. On one hand, you have the devs deciding what loot's strong and what loot has really awesome abilities, and then you go chase that loot for those awesome abilities. And on your system, they're doing the same thing. They're just doing it in your skill tree. You're still doing the same thing. Mine's attached to gameplay. Mine's attached to going and chasing something and dopamine hits in your brain, not building something in a menu. I'm telling you, one is static and appeals to old school gamers who want to min-max and get out a dadgum spreadsheet. And the rest of us are like, brother, I don't want to do that. I'm going to follow the green arrows. And if I get to wear some skull helmet that lets me do some awesome ability, I'm good with it. Like, I don't know. I think there's a latent hypocrisy that'd be like, well, they made this mistake in Diablo 3. It shouldn't be based on the abilities. It should be based on the skills. You mean the skills that they design? The ones that they dictate which ones are strong and which ones are not, which ones pair and which ones harmonize and which ones synthesize and which ones don't? They're doing the same thing. They're just not attaching it to loot. They're attaching it to a build, and then you're going to go in and do your build, and when you do your build, that's where all your strength and power comes from instead of it coming from loot. Like, you're just moving where the power comes from. I would rather the power come from loot. I think that's more exciting. This is opinion. That's subjective. I will grant that. As I said at the beginning of this debate, I think more people are like me. I think more people are excited to have their power come from something that they chased and got than a skill build that they check boxes on. I'm not being dismissive or condescending. I get why people like that. They feel like they're an architect. It's an illusion of choice because you didn't come up with the build. The devs did. You're just kind of discovering it. There's a skeleton beneath the surface, and you're scraping away the dust, and you come up with this skeleton, you're like, yeah, I made this. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. The devs did. It ain't no different than the loot being the source of power. I just think one is more psychologically fulfilling and exciting, and I think science and research will probably back me on this. Good debate, Weez. I love you. He's probably typing a counterpoint. Let's keep watching the video, guys. Keep smashing the like button. Gift some members or become a member. We're 17 away from a huge goal on the day.
People do need to understand that heading into launch, we are looking at much more content overall. Fractured Peaks takes up only 1/5 of the total map, and that's not even including the Hell Zone. Even if you
look at that. Look at that, though. I want to go back here. Look at that. look at that. That's it. That's it. That's all you got to play. That's all you got to play, baby. Diablo 4 beta gameplay, dude. That's incredible. That's incredible. So much more for us to do in this game. Okay, Wheezy's responding to my argumentation. He says, so what I'm arguing is, I take Path of Exile, for example. The skills feel good out of the gate. Then they feel great depending on how I build. And yes, I'm talking up Last Epoch. But the way they do it is unironically perfect. My build feels good with the skill tree, but the only way I feel great is if I grind for god rolls, exalted, or legendaries. My power comes from the loot, but I can still feel good with just my skill tree. I don't love Yelp. Oh, whatever. I don't think that system's flawed, Wheezy. I just think it's less appealing to people. I think that's what it comes down to. I really do. I don't think you're incorrect. I don't think I'm incorrect either. I think that system's less appealing to people because they feel like they have to. Listen, I'm going to say the same thing you're saying to me. Well, I have to run that build to feel strong. I have to pick all those skills and all that. I have to run that build to feel strong. Now, your system could push back and say, well, there's 7 different really good builds, or maybe there's 4 different really, really good builds on this class. That's not necessarily true. Okay, that's probably a fair pushback, just like my pushback on loot generosity is like, listen, if the game's really generous, you don't have to worry about that. You're going to get these things to drop. You're going to get versions of these items to drop, and then you're just going to chase the best one. Here's the difference between your system and my system. In my system, it leans on loot-based power, which then provokes and promotes a generous loot drop system, which is exactly what you're wanting to go for, which is the idea of like, I'm going to go for the best version of this sword. In your system, I need the best version of that sword. I need it. Why? Well, because if not, it doesn't really increase my power. My power comes from my build. So the sword is superfluous to my build unless it's the god roll. You're inadvertently putting too much stress and emphasis on loot in an effort to actually put less emphasis on loot. You've accidentally put too much emphasis on loot. Does that make sense? It's inadvertent. It's like, no, we want to downplay loot. Your power comes from your build, and then legendaries are additive. Well, when does the legendary really heat up? Well, when you get the god roll. Oh my, you just put more emphasis on loot just in the wrong way. Lono's no longer coming to the Diablo cookout. Whatever. Homie, I got so many invites to the cookout, I'm practically co-hosting. But the pushback is you can build one skill multiple ways. Right, I'm speaking at 30,000 feet because I've not played the games you're talking about. I build a Shatterstrike Spellblade. I can build it for crit. I can build it for ward, stun, ailment buildup, armor shred, and elemental damage. That's just one of my 5 possible skills that I can have out of 20. I'm telling you right now, hey, creature, I would do a coffee cup instead of the logo. Maybe not. Like, thank you, Fat Steven, for the raid. You see what I'm saying, Wheeze? I just think people don't want to do that. Like, you're talking about a research project. I'm talking about seeing dings and bings on the screen and being like, yeah, woo, I got some stuff. Yo, we're getting a fat raid. Thank you for the fat raid, Fat Steven. Guys, when Fat Steven talks in the chat, be sure to click on his name and throw him a subscribe. He shows this channel love on a regular basis. Let's show him some love back. So, yeah, I'm going to go back to what I said just moments ago. I don't think you're wrong, Wheezy. I think that system works. I think that system is appealing. Have you ever heard anybody say that person is a stand-up comic for stand-up comics? Have you ever heard that? Where they say, this guy is so ideological, he's such a purist, he's a stand-up comic for stand-up comics, and it ends up making that person like less appealing, less accessible, less approachable to the common public, right? I feel like that's kind of what's going on. Yo, Fat Steven says no problem. Blue Beetle trailer dropped. Yeah, I heard it looks pretty good. Thanks for 10 months, Fat Steven. So, yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I just think that the reason they're taking this path in Diablo is I think more people are like me. I think loot-based power and generosity, I think that's the key. Listen, I'm going to be honest with you. Rod Ferguson can claim that they upped the generosity in the beta so that they could, like, test and see how things work and, like, give a more robust feeling. No, they're testing player reaction to generosity. That's what they're doing. They're testing player reaction to generosity. Because what they're going to do is they're going to turn things down. They're going to turn things down in the full game. And then they're going to see how the players respond, and they will tune accordingly. Both you guys have good arguments. I appreciate that, Robert. I think that's what they're doing. I think they were testing generosity in the beta on purpose, because what's going to happen is they're going to tune things down, and as they tune things down in the full game, they'll test player reaction, and if they see player drop-offs at a certain point, they'll bring it back up, and then it'll be like that Goldilocks, well, this porridge is too hot, this porridge is too cold, but this porridge is just right. I think that's where we're headed. Nerfing generosity is a bad idea. I think they're going to do it initially, Cujo, and let me explain to you why I think they're going to do that. If you nerf generosity in the first couple of weeks and you get a negative response, turning it back up a little bit will feel like a splash of cold water on your face. So think of it this way. Let's just use numbers so this is easy to understand. Let's say right now generosity's at a 10. And they're like, that's too high. And they back it down to a 5. You're going to be like, what the frick happened to the drops? This is ridiculous. And after a couple of weeks, they'll bump it back up to 7. Well, going from a 5 to a 7 is going to feel great. But if they go from a 10 to a 7, you're going to be annoyed, and then they have no wiggle room. Does that make sense? There's a level of psychological manipulation that's going to take place. I don't think it's sinister. I think it's just good business. They're going to lower it below where they probably want to end up. Because you're going to drop it from a 10 to a 5, everybody's going to get ticked off, and then you're going to raise it from a 5 to a 7, and everyone's going to be like, hey, thank you so much, you listened, yay. And then it'll be fine-tuned right where they want it, in the middle. It'll feel generous, it'll feel rewarding, but it's not going to feel like a dadgum pinata every time you kill an enemy. If you're too generous, it's way worse than not generous enough. No, I actually think both extremes, one is actually better than the other. I don't think too generous is worse than not generous, and let me explain why. If you're way too generous, everybody can enjoy the game, but you are going to have a quicker bell curve of drop-off from the hardcore audience because they're going to get stuff faster than they probably should. But the casual players are going to love it because they're going to get stuff fairly easily, and then they're going to be able to move on to the next thing, and that's going to keep them in the player funnel. And the hardcore player can min-max and chase god rolls. If you're super, super stingy, you tick off both players and engagement suffers almost immediately. If you kick casuals in the face during the first month and the game is stingy AF, they will never come back. They won't. They will never come back. If you're too generous, the hardcore players, they'll keep playing. They'll probably just drop off a little bit quicker on the back end, and that's a far better system to be in. Why? Because you can tune that. You can tune that, and then they'll come back. If you're too generous and you adjust it down, then it never goes well. Oh, that's exactly why I'm saying, Valiant. If the beta was at a level 10, they're going to drop it to 5. Everybody's going to get mad, and then they're going to boost it to 7, and then everybody will celebrate. And what they don't realize is they had a net loss of a 10 to a 7, but they don't care because it feels like they've had it improved. The result of that is you went from a 10 to a 7 and you celebrated it. But if they do it in the right order, you won't care. That's the point. That's what I think they're going to do. It's almost like a classic negotiation tactic. All right, let's keep watching this video.
Even if you combine all the maps from Diablo 1, 2, and 3, it still doesn't equal the size of Diablo 4 in total.
Like, look at that. Look at that. I'm so glad that they did this. Look at that. Like this. All right. And then there you go. That's Diablo 1, 2, and 3. Woo. It's a big game, boys. It's a big game.
Another massive bonus is the fact that the associate game director, Joseph Piapiora, stated on Twitter, "I don't think folks realize how many more legendary powers exist beyond what was on display during the Diablo 4 beta. There are a lot of bizarre, exciting, and totally balanced legendaries to discover when the game goes live in June." A fan replied, "Do you mean that the beta didn't show us the other legendary powers on the list? Or that we just didn't have access to them because they were not set to have a drop rate in the beta, but they still existed in the aspects list?" Joseph replied, "The Codex of Power contains less than half of all the possible legendary powers that can be found in Diablo 4. Plenty more legendaries can be found later in the game experience."
Now this, I think this is a really, really good pushback on the people that are already decrying the end game. Like, I think this is a very, very good pushback. Like, listen, man. You guys ain't seen nothing yet. Big map, and I'm only going to play in one part of Diablo 4 endgame? How do you know that? Or are you only going to go to, what, Fields of Hatred or whatever it's called? You're only going to play PvP? Yeah, I think the PvP is right up your alley, Wheeze, because it sounds like it's just going to be grief central. You're going to be in there just griefing people left and right. Oh, yeah, you want to try and get out of here with your stuff? And then you're going to roll up on them and just destroy their dreams. I actually don't think the end game of Diablo is going to be super narrow. I don't think it is. I think the end game of Diablo is going to be quite diverse because of the way that they do the sigils and the nightmare dungeons. I don't think you're going to feel like you're always just living in the same spot over and over and over again. I think they were really smart about that. They were really, really smart about that. Like, you can't just keep running the same dungeon over and over and over again. I had a guy leave a comment on one of my videos, and he was like, "Oh, it's so clear they're putting the best loot in PvP." And I'm like, who said that? Wow, toxic? Yes. Yeah, I'm not toxic. I know you. I know you. You will be giddy like a kid on Christmas morning jumping into that PvP knowing that you can literally take something from another person as they're trying to quote-unquote extract. You're going to be giddy. I know you, man. You're like the nicest troll I've ever met. That's just, people are going to flock to that. But I don't think there's anything that I've seen that indicates that you have to run PvP to get the best gear in the game. I don't agree with that. I don't know where people are getting that idea. I don't know where they're getting that input, because I'm not seeing that input basically anywhere. I'm not. I'll be griefing. I mean, PvPing, says Wheezy. That's right. But this response that's on screen right here, the Codex of Power contains less than half of the possible legendary powers that can be found in Diablo 4. Plenty more legendary powers can be found later in the game experience. So less than half, meaning there is a whole lot of legendary power that we have not seen yet. So
This just goes to prove that we actually haven't even come to test and play barely any of the game and have only scratched the surface of what has been shown to us overall. Simply only one zone, 3 strongholds, some dungeons, and a world boss. And even that took us over 2 weekends to even come close to completing, so Diablo 4 is not a game that is going to be lacking content and build diversity when it comes to the game's overall long-term health.
I think that's a really good response, too. That was really well stated by the Comeback Kids. The idea that, like, listen, man, like, we barely scratched the surface. You know what I'm saying? Like, you hung out in the lobby of the hotel and you're trying to talk about how big the rooms are. you're trying to talk about how good the hotel suite is or the pool is. Like, look, you hung out in the lobby of the hotel. Like, shush, 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 shush. You've not done anything yet. Everybody chill out and sit down for a second. I think the dungeon grind will be very good, says Wheezy. I'm excited for it as long as they have interesting late game legendaries. Yeah, I love the idea of getting sigils and the sigils telling you where to go and going into a nightmare dungeon, completely changing the dungeon, because they said that in one of their pushbacks. They did an interview with Eurogamer and they said, listen, you're playing the base level versions of these dungeons, and something that they really tried to do with the base level versions of the dungeons is they wanted them to have like their own identity so that when you come back to them later, they have like a certain look and like a certain feel. And I think that is you know, a really, really good system. And the fact that you can be running a nightmare dungeon and get a harder sigil for a completely different dungeon. So you're not allowed to say, oh, this is the fastest dungeon, let's just run this over and over again, because that's generally what people would do, right? That's what people would do. They would say, oh, this dungeon here, dungeon number 9 in this you know, system of in this field is the fastest dungeon in the game, and they would just run it over and over and over and over and over again. Well, no, you need a sigil to drop, and when the sigil drops, it tells you where to go, and then that one, when you go, it tells you, you know, what the modifiers are going to be. Victor Mayhem says Codex of Power were just the legendary powers that you could use multiple items after earning them. The others are single-use extracts from legendary gear, and they will have lots of them, and they will keep adding. Yeah, that's something I'm curious to see exactly how much they want to be additive to the legendaries and the Codex of Power and all of that within the realm of the seasons as well as the expansions. I'm actually curious on how exactly they're going to do that, because I think that is room for expansion. That is room for, you know, adding to the game.
Massive announcement this month for Diablo fans in April is that the community development director Adam Fletcher announced that he's getting a lot of questions about the next developer update stream, and that is going to be in April, where they're going to have a special guest. This is particularly going to be a very big live stream because they're going to be talking about progression and endgame systems in Diablo 4, which we don't really have much information on other than the players back in the fall testing it out.
We are definitely going to be watching that, because the players that tested it, you know, and were able to talk about it, it was difficult, I think, for them to really grapple with the trajectory and the scope of some of the systems, because again, it's just a beta / capture event. So I do think that makes it tough for them to know, okay, this is exactly how it's going to play out. This is exactly how it's going to go. Because I do wonder sometimes, I remember I had that experience in Forspoken where they suddenly drop me in the game and I have all these abilities and I have all these powers. And it was almost difficult for me to even get a grapple with like how strong I truly was, or, you know, what exactly was happening, or, you know, what kind of builds I should use. And so I definitely think that this dev update is going to be one to pay attention to, because it'll give us a very, very firm grasp on, okay, what's this game going to look like, you know, long term? What's this game going to feel like? Because if they start talking about the systems, I have questions about the resistance. I wonder if they're even going to speak to that. Like, is that their goal for the game, to continue to get harder and harder and harder and spongier and spongier and spongier? Like, is that by design, or is that something that they're monitoring and analyzing? Because, you know, player behavior, I can't think that they think that that's right. Like, I should be running into content as a level 20, and I'm killing level 20 enemies, and my wife's a level 11, and she's melting them because they're not doing any resistance to her at all. Like, I'm just really curious if that's what they envision. Is that how gameplay is supposed to go? Question for you, says Wheezy. How do you feel they will honestly handle the endgame balance of class skills, specialization, and enemy resistance? I truly don't know, because what it sounds like they're going to do now is they're going to heavily lean on resistances, and that's going to be your motivation to min-max. That's going to be your motivation to, seek out really good gear and really make your perfect build. You know what I mean? Like, I don't necessarily think that that's going to be a very fun design, if I'm honest. Like, that's one of the things I am worried about. I think they're primarily hoping that the seasonal content hooks the casuals, because that's going to be like the more accessible, fun, make a new character and grind. But part of the dilemma there is, are casuals going to reject the seasonal format because they're not going to want to create a brand new character? Because creating a brand new character is definitely a more hardcore player, sentimentality and mentality. Wheezy says, the tools are in front of you, like literally in front of you. Rotating dungeon in Pit of Heresy, farm the boss for god roll stat armor, go into trials solo. Don't matter if you lose, grind trials, engrams for focus armor. Oh, you guys are talking about Destiny. I was like, what in the world are you talking about? So yeah, that is a concern that I have, is the resistance system that they outlined and the way that I'm experiencing it in the early game. I don't think I'm going to like that in the late game. Because, like, I don't want to have to frickin' min-max just to be able to kill basic enemies. Does that make sense? Like, if I go to run a dungeon and everything's being so resistant to me that I feel like I have to min-max just to kill the trash ads, that's going to be pretty irritating. I feel like min-maxing should come in for, dungeon boss farming or overcoming some of the modifiers or things like that. I don't necessarily think I should be feeling like, oh my gosh, everything is just resisting everything that I do. So, YouTube chat completely went to sleep on me. If you guys want to debate this, I'd love to know what you think. What do you want to see in the endgame of Diablo, to Wheezy's question? Are you worried about the resistance? What do you think about our debate about whether it should be based on your power and your skill tree or your items or your loot? Let us know what you think.
We're going to be discussing some beta learnings and findings, and potentially even tuning some classes and abilities, as well as aspects also. Now, we do have to remember that they're going through all the changes and the submitted feedback through thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of players, and it's going to take a long time for them to scrub through and try to tune and clean up everything for a successful launch.
Victor says, my understanding is there will be endgame enemies that are strong versus certain powers and weak versus another, thereby requiring unique builds and team makeup. Well, right, or you're just going to have to accept that, like, you can't be built for everybody because you don't even have access to all elements whenever you pick a class, right? I want monster trucks. I don't think I can put monster trucks in the game. Definitely worried about resistance. As long as it's not another version of rift pushing, I'm happy. Tough to say, really. I'll need to play the endgame to really have an opinion. PoE endgame stack resist. Yeah. I think in general, this is always a challenge for games. Because if you just make everything stronger, do you really feel stronger? If all the enemies get stronger, and all the enemies and all the bosses and all the multipliers, everything's just stronger, and you're like, okay, well, now I got to get this and that and the third, and then that's going to empower me to be strong enough to kill all these guys quickly, okay? And you do all that, all right? Okay, well, that has a similar feeling, right? Of like, well, the only way for me to really, grind, the only way for me to, the only way for me to really overcome this is just to get a min-max build. Well, resistances are going to work in a really similar way. I think it's almost inevitable that you're going to almost make it feel like it bottlenecks or pyramids up. It's like it gets narrow in the end game. I just don't know if that's a possibility to avoid. It's like that's what the end game's always going to turn into. It's going to be a power hump that you have to get over. I think resistance is good. It will make me think about how I spec my character. Lost Ark just made boss health HP like 6 trillion, which was ridiculous. As the Druid, I felt like I had to hold on to my lower level legendaries that barely had armor just to be effective. Using better armor made me feel even worse, but keeping legendary ons felt bad too. Yeah, it just doesn't feel right. It feels like you're incentivizing the wrong behavior. I thought that about the resistances, says Eric, when it was announced, and I really don't want to suffer just for me to be being God, but I'm using lightning and I can't go to the dungeon. I feel like they implemented this change to combat power leveling. If it scales with your level, then your amount of experience earned will only be set to your level. You had my attention with Power Hump. Raids and more extensive, deeper dungeons. Also, a fun PvP would be nice, but that's being hopeful. I mean, I think you're going to have all those things. The PvP sounds like it's going to be right up people's alley that like to go in and have an intense thing. All you're going to try and extract, you're going to try and get out, right? I think when that happens, I think you're going to see people say, okay, PvP is actually pretty fun. I think at the end of the day, if you're not doing something like that with your PvP, I mean, what's the reason to even play PvP? You almost have to have a moment. You have to have this thing that's happening. I have an argument for you, says YouTube Lurker. By increasing the reliance on resistance and not allowing a class to get all elements, it means I can't solo the game. I'll be skipping this one for sure. See, but yeah, I don't know if a game like this, if that's a fair expectation. An online action RPG, you should not expect to be able to solo everything in the game. Now, Victor's saying that you should be able to use gear to supplement your class, but I don't agree with the premise. I think you're coming at the game with the faulty premise. I don't think you can look at Diablo 4 and say, if I can't solo everything in the game, then I don't want to play it. I mean, I guess you can say that as like, if that's your perspective on like how you buy a game, whether or not you buy a game, I could say that's fine if that's how you play. But I don't necessarily think that makes sense when approaching a game like Diablo, right? I'm just adjusting the crop here. I realize I didn't have a clean crop on their video. You're basically saying that online ARPG, if I can't solo everything, I don't want to play the game. Well, it's good to know what you know or know what you like and know what you love so you avoid a game that's not going to give you what you want. But at the same time, I feel like you're approaching the game from a very strange premise. I get I should not expect to solo in Diablo 4, but I could in Diablo 1 through 3. Well, maybe we're jumping to conclusions. Right? Maybe we're jumping to conclusions. Maybe we should not be jumping to, the idea that you can't solo. I would wait and see. Are you confident you can't solo? Or are you basing that off of just what they're saying from a systemic, perspective? Are you just assuming like, oh yeah, there's no way I can solo? All right, let's keep watching the video.
They also did make it very clear that the open beta is just that. It's not a fully fledged game that is prepared for launch, and that it was there for players to test out the servers as well as the game's early levels to make sure everything's finely tuned.
I think this is exactly something that people need to remember. I don't think this beta was necessarily designed to showcase and say, hey, this is what the end game's going to be. This is what all the classes are going to be. This is what all the builds are going to be. I think this was primarily built so that we could, we could test their servers. Weezy says, I think everything in Diablo 4 is soloable. It's just harder. Yeah, I don't know if I've seen anybody come to the conclusion that Diablo 4 is not soloable. Like, I think Diablo 4 gameplay is set up to be more challenging if you're by yourself, but I think that should just come with the territory. Is that The Office reference, jumping to conclusions? No. Jumping to conclusions is just a phrase that people use. I don't know what you mean. Resistances make it more of a challenge, says P-Funk. D2 resistances made you either avoid some enemies or use in-game systems to break a resistance, and bosses were not fully resistant to any element. Every part of the game currently that they have in the game is able to be soloed, says Deadly Dad Gaming. They did hint that maybe in the future they would add content that's going to be able to be run easier in a group. There will be people that base their content off solo runs of Diablo 4. YouTube Lurker says, I'm basing no solo on the devs talking about resistances and character builds. I'll be waiting. If I get to Season 2 and see it was okay, I'll dive in late. So do you just typically approach a game like this totally solo? Like you have no desire to play with other people? Or is it just that's just how you play? You're just kind of not in a negative way. You just kind of isolate and do your thing, and you just don't want to have to like send a friend invite or a friend request. It's just easier to grind. At some level, I sympathize and empathize with that. Sometimes it's just easier to not have to worry about other people. Just do your thing. Like, I remember whenever I was going to play the beta, and Creature's like, do you want to hook up and play with somebody? And I was like, I don't know. I tend to like to just be by myself in the early stages. Once I get my footing, that's when I typically like playing with other people. Like, once I've got my footing and I kind of understand the systems and I kind of know what's going on, that's when I like jumping in with other folks and kind of getting my grind on. I think he means if he goes with a lightning build and the boss is lightning resistance. Oh, Office Space. Yeah, I was definitely not making an Office Space joke. I've seen that movie, I think, twice, and it's been so long. Sometimes I don't remember all like the memes and jokes from it, like jumping to conclusions. I don't remember what part that's from. All right, let's keep watching the video.
Now, if you're asking me personally, I think there are definitely going to be some issues come launch day, no matter what happens. I mean, the amount of people trying to flood into Sanctuary and play Diablo 4 all at once come June is going to be immense. So don't expect the game to be buttery smooth and clean come launch day. I would definitely lower some of your expectation and expect some queues or even disconnects overall while you're playing.
Yep.
A fan posted on Twitter asking, I would love to know if there's any gameplay or design changes that stem from Diablo for the weekends. I think I just want to know whether or not playing or my feedback contributed to anything. But yeah, Barbarian just felt super slow leveling. Zaven Haratunian replied, yep, give us a few weeks, you'll hear more from us soon.
And I want to hear specificity here. You know what I mean? I'm in my 50s. My friends do not game. Okay, I hear you. So, like, I want some specificity here. I really do. I want to know, okay, what are you doing? What are you going to be doing to Barbarian? What are you doing to Druid? Because I want to play Druid day one. You know what I'm saying? Brother, I want to play Druid day one. I don't want to have this, you know, this sense of, oh yeah, you know, Druid and Barb will get there. You know, Druid and Barb will get there. That's not something that I'm willing to accept. I need to know ahead of time, what are you doing to Druid? I want patch notes. I want a list of buffs. I want a list of changes. You know, if your comeback is, you know, we just want to let people know that you know, Druid's going to get this and this at these levels, I'm like, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. If you guys are enjoying the show, thanks so much for being here. We're reacting to the Comeback Kids video, having a great conversation and back and forth. Do me a favor, if you haven't smashed like yet, hit the like button. We should easily have 300 likes. And if you want to gift a member or become a member, we're close to a huge goal. Currently, I owe you guys 5 members. I'll owe you 10. You can double how much I owe you if we hit this goal. Every 25, I have to gift 5 back to the community. And over there on Kick, we didn't hit it today. We are at 9 out of 25. Kick still kicking, though. 39 viewers over here. Thanks for watching over here on Kick. All right, let's keep watching because this is good. We're going to, you know, give us a few weeks. You'll hear more soon. Okay, great. I really hope they do a dev. I hope they do a Diablo 4 dev update, not just about the endgame and progression, which is what the next one's going to be about. There's going to be one in April about that. I want to see what are you doing with my Druid, right? Talika says, I have bad experiences playing in groups previously. I'll most likely end up playing Diablo 4 with my husband, and he tanks. And every game we play, he tanks. When I play separate from him, it's good to know I can do things on my own without relying on him or others. Right. In every game we play, he tanks. Talika, is that outside of... Are those games that aren't just video? I'm just kidding.
Definitely leads us to believe that come the April live stream, they're going to make some nice announcements towards player feedback and some major class issues and concerns heading into Diablo 4 for launch come June. A massive question many fans had during the beta was about skill intensity, and Daniel Briggs, who's the associate art director and does VFX on Diablo 4, stated that, yes, this is in the game and the beta is limited to level 25. There is a ton of additional content, especially at higher world tiers, and your skill intensity is based on your skill points and legendary affixes for the skill. The total rank that a skill can get to includes plus 5 points you can spend onto your skill tree before you cap it out, plus 6 points from a skill point affix, plus 3 points from a skill category affix, and plus 4 points from extremely rare redacted. He also stated that modifying the size of a skill can come from many different sources as well. Skill points from certain skills, legendary items, legendary paragon nodes, and glyphs.
I think this all sounds really, really good because I definitely felt like some of the abilities, it's like, what are they doing? You know what I'm saying? Everybody laughs about, what is it, the 17 damage that the Druid Hurricane was doing. You know what I'm saying? I think Diablo 4 empowers you to solo a lot, says Wheezy, but I hope that they also have content specifically for groups. Well, I definitely think the world bosses point to that. I don't think you can look at the world boss design. Like, the Diablo 4 world boss is not something that you're going to be strutting around doing on your own. Number one, because it's going to have people in the instance. And number two, it's just probably not designed for that. It's not designed for you to be soloing. It's not designed for you to, like, run out there and one-shot him or, you know, fight him all on your own. You're going to get solo aggroed. You're going to get, you know, you're going to get smacked around because you're all by yourself. So I actually agree. I actually think you should consider having the content that's specifically built for groups, because I do think there always needs to be a somewhat of a hierarchy and trajectory within a game. You have to have this sense of, we're going somewhere. Things are getting harder. Now I need to group find. Now I need to find people to play with. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I don't think that's like antithetical to a game like this. Even if some people feel like, oh, I don't really like that. What I like about what Daniel Briggs is saying here is that the actual skills and in the intensity of the skills can be increased and modified and made better. You're just going to have to either find the items or do the right build in order to get there. That was something that I noticed. That was something that I considered to be a pretty significant sort of downside to the game, was that some of the abilities just didn't seem to do anything. They seemed immensely, they were kind of weak. It was like, I don't really know what you guys are going for here, but I don't feel like I'm hurting anything. I don't feel like I don't feel like I'm doing anything. So stay alive and wait for health drops. That's one of my favorite things in the game. I actually really, really like the Diablo 4 boss design, where they have the little things that drop the potions once you get to their health to certain thresholds. I really, really like that. So aspiration to be soloable is great and just requires you to min-max more. Yeah, that I can agree with. Like, if you're going to try to solo something, you know, that's aspirational. That's not something you can just do out of the box.
This is going to be awesome for you as the player when you have a certain ability that you absolutely love to use, like the Sorcerer's Incinerate spell or the Barbarian's Hammer of Ancients or Deathblow spell. Seeing increase in size as well as effects and animations is going to be very satisfying if that's the build you're going to go. It's also definitely going to increase the performance of a certain build depending on how many skill points you can actually invest into it.
YouTube Lurker says, there's nothing wrong with needing groups in a game like this. I also did not raid in Destiny. Not my bag is all. No shade, not asking for a different game. Right, and the hope would be that there's so much content for you to do that you wouldn't feel like, oh my gosh, I'm missing out. There's this thing that you need a group for. Like, I feel like Diablo 4 just has so much content, like, out of the box. Like, I don't know if you would feel that. I don't know if you would feel that pull of, yep, there's too many things that I can't do. I don't want to play, or I don't feel like I can play. I think that is I think that's not necessarily a concern that I would share for this game. I think there's going to be so much content for you to play on your own. You probably won't need to be concerned about that. As long as I can do the story solo, I'm fine, says Brain Eclipse over here on Kick. The Endgame stuff should have group stuff. They do want Diablo 4 to be an MMO-like game. Yeah, you know what's funny is I told you guys this game was an MMO in disguise. I said it has an identity crisis, and all of a sudden I saw all these articles saying the same thing. So they either saw my video and they were just copying, or more people are seeing what I'm seeing. In the beta, a few rogues soloed the world boss. They did 98 to 99%, and the kill got stolen the last 1%, but it was pretty much a solo. Yeah, and I mean, that's awesome. That's awesome. I thought my wife was playing as a rogue, and it made me want to play as a rogue, but build completely different than her, because we went all range for her build, and it was pretty awesome. So thank you guys for another huge day. This is our second stream of the day, so thank you so much for smashing the like button, for gifting the members, for being awesome, for following a bunch of new followers today over on Kick. Make sure you're following, and make sure you got your memberships and subscriptions active in all the different places. Let's go. Let's watch more of this video.
Leading us to believe that certain builds will perform better at late game stages rather than early game. Lastly, we just wanted to talk about some simple stats the developer shared with us, including the total hours played in the beta being over 61 million hours, and having 2.6 million players receive the beta Wolfpack, and over 50 million deaths on players worldwide. And my favorite stat is the most classes being played are the Necromancer and the Sorcerer.
Not surprising, like, at all. Is anybody surprised that Sorcerer and Necro are the most played classes? Like, this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. You cannot inadvertently funnel everybody. You can't funnel everybody. If you're funneling people, you know, to these other places, I think that's just bad. That's just bad design. You don't want to do that. You don't want to have people feeling like, oh yeah, the only ones worth playing are Sorcerer and the Necro. You know, you're gonna that's what your game's gonna be. Everybody running around as a Sorcerer and the Necro. Yeah, and poor Talika didn't get the beta wolf pack. Almost 3 million people got it. I was one of those people. I was grinding on the weekend. My in-laws were in town, and I told my wife, I said, listen, I got to be able to play this. It's for content. Like, I need to be able to research. I need to be able to know what's going on. And, you know, I want to get that wolf pack. You know, I want to get that wolf pup. So I did. I hit level 20. And we'll get that, you know, whenever the full game comes out. But yeah, the most played classes being Sorcerer and Necro is just not even like at all a surprise. Like, there's nothing in that surprises me. There's nothing in that is shocking. That is quite literally what I expected. I didn't expect anything different. No, after it didn't take people very long to figure it out, right? Didn't take people very long to figure out, you know, that those are the best classes to pick.
Now, personally, I would love a number on how many players actually participated in the beta overall to see if it's going to be popular or if people are very interested in the game at its current state. But these are still great stats to show the community as well as players that a lot of people were playing the game at the time.
I mean, I would say that's a great meme. I would say that the fact that almost 3 million people got to level 20, I would say that means probably double that played, right? You got to have close to 6 million people that tried this thing out. I don't know. That's just me throwing out a total guess. But it's like, I bet you if close to 3 million people got that wolf pup, man, I bet you twice as many played. 1 million people beat the beta? Like, actually beat the beta? Yeah, 2.6 got the wolf pup. I mean, that's 2.6 million people that got to level 20. I don't know. In my mind, you double that played. Because how many people played for a little bit, tried out the different classes, you know, got to level 10, got to the teens, and just stopped. Like, my wife is one of those people. Like, we played, she didn't get to level 20. We just didn't have time. Or we would have had time, but, you know, her parents were in town, so we just weren't able to play. So, that meme is fire. It's so good.
These next 2 months are going to be very tough for Diablo fans overall because they're going to be withdrawing from the game and wishing they were back in Sanctuary, with even the developers posting some funny memes about it.
I think this one might be. I think this one's better than the. I think this one is better than the Wolverine one because for half a second I'm like, "What's he looking? Oh, there she is!" Like this is perfectly done. That's good Photoshop work right there, dude. She's outside. She's outside the window, man. Little Kermit. Poor little Kermit, dude. He's upset. He misses her. He does.
By the way, there's a brand new Xbox Series X bundle for Diablo 4 that looks absolutely incredible if you guys are interested in that. And back to the giveaway. The Comeback Kids are doing a giveaway for a free copy of Diablo 4. So if y'all are interested, please go to the link in the description below to see more.
There you go. There you go. Give their video some love. It's linked below in my description. You can also click and just go right to their channel. The Comeback Kids, they have great Diablo content. You may have seen them in some of Asmongold's content. He's given them some love and some reactions. And their videos do well on their own, by the way. They're not like... They've had some videos explode without anybody watching or reacting. So they've had some really good big takeoffs. So watch out, he might have a cucumber. Yeah. What? That looks terrible. No art on the console. Yeah, I don't understand the Diablo 4 Xbox bundle. Did they put anything on the actual Xbox? Is it on the controller? I don't. What do you get? I don't see anything. It just looks like you get the game and the Xbox. Open image in a new tab. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything. I don't understand. It's just a regular Xbox. So it just comes bundled with the game? Nothing at all. So you don't get a Diablo 4 controller. You don't get... the console is just a regular old console. Yeah, let me see if I can get this cropped for you guys. Hang on. Let me shrink this all the way down and drag it up. There. Yeah, it's just a regular old console. Terminato Meagle is a menace. Oh. You get the day one emblem? Yeah, I don't know. That's Kermit's new girlfriend. You know him and Miss Piggy broke up? Yeah. Well, that's not surprising. Lilith's gonna have Miss Piggy for dinner. It looks just like a regular game bundle. I mean, obviously, it's not surprising. Like, Blizzard, Activision, and Microsoft are getting along, you know? Blizzard, Activision was like, hey, can you buy us? We need some help. And Microsoft's like, yeah, sure, so do we. So, you know, they're getting along, so it's not surprising that they did some kind of a bundle. It's just weird that it's literally just the box and that's it. You know what I mean? The sequel to the small darling of Diablo 3 sold 30 million copies as a surprise hit. I talked on my last live show about how one of the best things that happened for Microsoft is everyone becoming obsessed over COD and seemingly forgetting how massive Blizzard is. Wall Street Journal. Heard on the street, Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard looks more likely, while Blizzard's new Diablo game is shaping up to be a surprise hit. So Benji Sales is on Twitter saying that, you know, they've got everybody looking at COD and they're ignoring Blizzard. And while I get where he's coming from, while I understand where he's coming from, I think the thing to remember is the reason that everybody's focusing on COD is because it's so endemic. It's so endemic to Sony's revenue. You know what I'm saying? It's just, that's why everybody's focusing on COD. Like, no console, no competitor with Microsoft is like sitting there like worried about like what's going to happen to Diablo. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, nobody's looking at it that way. Nobody's saying like, oh no, what if Microsoft does something exclusive with Diablo? They're probably all like, who the frick cares? Diablo is made for multi-plat. It's been promised to multi-plat. It's not a concern. Oh, and Diablo 4 is going to be around for 10 years. So like the worst thing that could happen is I guess they give the Xbox console the Xbox console like access to a season early or something, or cosmetics early. Surprise hit. He was being cheeky. He was saying like it's not a surprise hit, but nobody's paying any attention to it is what he's saying. I think he's pointing to that reality. It's like look, this game did incredible. You know what I'm saying? This game did incredible. Everybody's not paying any attention to it. Everybody's paying attention to Call of Duty, and he's saying like, listen, man, Diablo is friggin' massive. Like, nobody's paying attention to it. And I'm telling you, it's because PlayStation's not concerned about revenue of Diablo. They're not. Microsoft could get the ABK deal, and they could announce that in 5 years they're no longer going to put any new content, any new Diablo content on PlayStation. And PlayStation would be angry, and they might speak out publicly about it, but I don't think they'd be, like, rattled. Like, oh, no, we're going to lose so much revenue. Like, they don't... Like, Diablo's not endemic to the revenue streams of Sony in the way that Call of Duty is. Now, if 48% of the people that were buying Diablo on the PlayStation ecosystem, then they might have something to say about it, right? Not even a logo on the console or the controller, though? Yeah, it seems kind of slapped together. They couldn't be bothered to put a sticker on the console. Yeah, I don't know. If you're just tuning in, we reacted to a video from the Comeback Kids where the devs responded to a lot of questions and criticisms about the Diablo IV beta. I thought it was a really good video. It's linked below if you want to support it and support their channel. I thought it was a really good video because it really did a lot of good research. They walked through a lot of good feedback and a lot of good tweets that really give a good glimpse into exactly what the devs think about certain, elements of the game. I think my biggest concerns and my biggest takeaway coming away from the video and from, coming away from what some of the devs are saying is it seems like they're really going to lean heavily on this idea that like, oh yeah, things will get stronger as you play, things will get better as you play. And I'm like, that's just not an answer to some of the problems and concerns with Druid and Barbarian. I am a little worried that seemed to be one of the go-to answers. Was, oh yeah, you're gonna get to a certain spot and you're gonna get all this stuff that you didn't have in the beta, and oh yeah, you're gonna be able to get so much more stuff in the end game. None of that matters if the character feels like garbage for 50 levels or 100 levels or whatever. You know what I'm saying? None of that matters if it's an undesirable. Like when they showed the stats at the end and it was like, yeah, more people played the Necro and the Sorcerer. And it was like, well, yeah, no, Sherlock. Of course more people played the Necro and the Sorcerer. They were the only ones worth playing. Like, well, Rogue was probably in third place, but because the Rogue was pretty good. But the Druid and the Barbarian, I saw people defending the Druid and the Barbarian being like, well, you gotta go get all these special items and builds and stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but now you're treating a beta like it's Endgame, and it's not. You were getting to 25 and you're min-maxing. That's not how the game's gonna be played. You're not gonna get to 25 in the actual full version of the game and go min-max and try and get the best loot and the best gear. Like, that's not something you're going to do. And I think people need to remember that. Who's going to stop and stall out and do that? By the way, if you guys are just tuning in and you haven't smashed the like button yet, thanks so much for doing it. Smash it. Get us to 300 likes. Hopefully you guys enjoyed doing a double show today. I still owe you 5 gifted members. I'll give them to you in a teeny little bit here. And then I'll give you guys a little bit of an opportunity if you want to keep that going to round it out. I'll owe you more than the 5. We still got some time to keep discussing this and everything that was in the video. You're good at censoring yourself that it literally sounds like it's being done in post. I appreciate that, Patrick. No, Sherlock. I don't know. I really enjoyed Barbarian, says Sven, but maybe it's also because I'm familiar with late game Barb and I know what's coming later on. Well, okay, there's a difference between enjoying Barb and him being built properly. Does that make sense? Just because you were able to get to a point where like Barbarian was, oh, hang on. Just because you're able to get to a certain point where like Barbarian was tolerable or Barbarian was fun, that doesn't necessarily take away from what everybody is saying. Does that make sense? Like, what people are saying is, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, or whatever. Like, you just don't feel like it's scaling properly, or you just don't feel like you're keeping up with everybody else. So, like, I guess my question for you, Sven, was, did you play with a sorcerer? Not you. What I mean is, were you on the Barbarian playing with another person who was on sorcerer? Or if you were playing Barbarian and Druid, and the person that you were playing with was on any of the other classes, it felt freaking terrible. It felt terrible. It was like, wait, what? You're killing everything. You're melting everything before I can even get to the bodies. Like, I'm literally picking up gold in your wake. I'm just like, wait up, wait for me, guys. Wait up. I just felt like the Barbarian was, he was going to cramp up from just constantly running to catch up with the team, For those asking, the new Sony hardware I alluded to in yesterday's stream hasn't been reported on yet, and no, it wasn't April Fool's. Yeah, apparently there's a new piece of PlayStation hardware on the horizon and nobody knows what it is. It's not a Slim and it's not a Pro. I guess my point was, yes, they feel weaker early game, but I gave it a pass because I know later on it's strong, and if not stronger than some others. Right, and I think that personal preference or that personal stay of execution, I don't think that's justification for the design. Like, you can do that as a player and say, oh, I know it's going to be, better later on. That's fine. I don't think that's justification for the design choice. I don't think I said it this way earlier. I don't think you create deficiencies in a class that are answered later, I don't think that's good game design. I don't want to derail, but if you get a chance at the end of the week, look at this video. Yeah, Asmongold reacting to Last Epoch. Yeah. Not today, obviously. That could be a second show sometime this week. I really like this reacting live for the second show. I don't have to write up some big, crazy monologue, but we still get to create really good content and have a good conversation. Yo, what's good, Brap? Good to see you. Basement Radio Arcade Podcast in the chat. Brap. Yeah, people are thinking it's going to be a portable Sony, a new PSP. Listen, I'm be real with you. There's a high likelihood that that's what it is. In my mind. I'm not basing this on anything from the market or any leaks, but there's a high likelihood that happens, and I'll tell you why. Real simple. The Asian market, they love it. They love the portable. Look at how successful the Switch has been. Look at the success of the Steam Deck. Like a portable, a really, really good portable game device, I don't know. I really hope it isn't portable. That does not seem like a good idea at all. I just don't know what else it could be. They've already got the PSVR 2. They've got the detachable unified SKU coming. And according to Tommy Hendy, it's not a Slim and it's not the PS5 Pro. What else could it be? What else could they possibly be trying to add to the hardware market other than what? They've done everything. They've got their controller. They've got their Edge. They've got the PSVR 2. I don't know what else you would add from a hardware perspective. I really and truly don't. I can't think of anything else. A PlayStation PC maybe? Who said that? The portable market's on fire right now? I guess my question would be, Wheezy, is you hope it's not a portable. Well, what would you hope it is instead? What piece of hardware would they be ignoring to add a portable? It's just from a logical standpoint. Power of handheld to price is not looking good, to put it lightly. A Kinect? I don't know about that. A Kinect camera? You're probably memeing. A PlayStation Kinect? PSP and the Vita just weren't successful, though. Why revisit? Tech has changed. I was just thinking PlayStation PC. Yeah, PlayStation PC. Oh my gosh. If Sony makes a new portable console, I'd buy it if it's any good. They've already tried twice to make a portable device. The performance you can squeeze into a portable and the price you're required. Yeah. Handhelds can suck with always online games. Try playing said game when no internet's available. I'm all in on a new PlayStation Portable, says Talica, especially if they make it backwards compatible. Yeah, you could lean into like the classics. I just don't know. I kind of hear where Wheezy's coming from. Like, you'd have to make it so expensive just to make it powerful enough. YouTube Lurker says, I definitely enjoyed the podcast this week. We'll be checking out more moving forward. Here's what I can't make heads or tails of. I right now am using a live stream audio stage to stream in my Discord, and no one has complained about that problem that I keep having. I only have that problem when I go into someone's Discord and get into a live channel. If I do a video chat with somebody, or if I do my own live stage, no problems at all. I don't get it. I don't know what's going on. I don't know why suddenly my Focusrite just gets really grumpy if I'm in anything but my own sound stage or a video chat with somebody. I do not understand it. I literally had to use my gaming rig for Crossfire on Friday night. I was like, I don't know what's happening. To be fair, I did pay $700 after taxes for the highest model of the Steam Deck, but that's a portable PC. I think a portable console would get away with being a few hundred cheaper. PlayStation mobile phone? I don't know about a mobile phone. From a logical standpoint, Wheezy says, you need power and heat dissipation. Look at the price of the Steam Deck. Then look at the power of the Steam Deck. Just from a design standpoint and hardware standpoint, you're going to have to bleed money. Discord's poo? I use the Scarlett Solo? Well, that's what I'm saying. I have a Focusrite that's never given me any problems. Right now, you can listen to me in my Discord on a soundstage, and no one complains. I don't get it at all. But the minute I'm in like one of the voice chat rooms, it's a problem. I do voice chats with my man Andrew, and we record a podcast. And if it sounded bad, he would have told me, like, bro, I can't hear what you're saying. Because I went back and listened to the podcast. I was like, you can't. It doesn't even make sense, the sounds that are happening. It sounds like I'm having some kind of a hardware failure. We got hands-on gameplay details from PlayStation about Jedi Survivor. It just dropped today. Jedi Survivor hands-on gameplay report, a sequel with galactic improvements. Great. Looks like we might have some good stuff to react to or talk about. With the success of the Switch and the Stream Deck, why wouldn't they want to get into the mobile space? Doesn't sound like a preamp thing. Yeah, I don't know. It's something on Discord's end. They did some kind of an update, and I can't talk in voice chats. I can only talk in sound stages and video chats. That's the only place I can get it to work. It's super bizarre. All right, I owe you guys 5 members. I'm going to do it. We're going to go to members here shortly. If you guys want to grab a bunch of members, we are 17 away from 100. So I'll owe you 10. I'm going to give you 5 now. If you guys hit the 100, I'll give you another 5. But I'm going to do it now. Let's see if we can't kind of jar chat, wake it up for just a bit here before we go to members. We'll hang out with members for, a brief amount of time today and just kind of debrief on the day. Try to give me 25 more likes on this video. We're super close to 300 likes. Show some appreciation for a second talk show as well as gifted members going out. A huge day for the community here. Huge day for the community. Let me give you a total member count. 2530, so we did drop a little bit again. We're maintaining 2,500 members, so your generosity and your insane level of gifting and support is helping us maintain 2,500 members. Same thing with you guys over there on Kick. It's just awesome to see. I think right now we have 26 plus the 8 gifted, plus the 11 gifted last month. So I think we're right now at 58 or 59 total members on Kick. Still have my PSP. If you guys just got a gifted membership, you'll be able to hang out with us when we go to members here shortly. It's just a way for us to debrief on the day and just kind of hang out. Okay. Moana live action movie? Really? Why would they do that? That doesn't feel like it's neat. Still streaming? Yes. Second show of the day. Getting ready to go hang out with members for a little bit. I'm not kidding. It was just announced. Dwayne Johnson and Louis Cravallo will return to Disney's live-action Moana remake. Why are they calling it a remake? That's not a remake. It's just a live-action. Literally a couple years old. Why? Dwayne just said on IGN YouTube. Yeah, I don't know. Have you seen the new Xbox controller patent? No, I have not. Wonder who's going to play Maui. Yeah. They obviously got Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to play Moana, so I'm not sure who they're going to get to play Maui. That's a hard casting choice. It's a live action interpretation? I don't understand. So that I don't know. I don't get that. Is it going to be Is it going to be live action or not? What's a live action interpretation? All right, because we reacted to something, I don't want this video to belabor the point since now we're no longer reacting to that video. So I'm going to give us 5 minutes. That's your 5-minute warning. If you guys want to get anything, any last-minute pushes done, any last-minute pulls, we're going to be going to members. We need 16 more likes on the vid. Those of you watching on Kick, if you're a member on YouTube, you're going to have to come over to YouTube to watch the next part of the stream. I'll be ending the stream on Kick. Thank you for supporting us over here. We've had anywhere from 30 to 50 viewers all throughout the day. Bunch more members, bunch more followers. We're just going to keep on keeping on. I just don't understand what Disney's doing anymore. I just like The Mandalorian, and that's it. Yeah, you just keep to the Star Wars. I mean, I thought you know, Andor was the best show they've made yet. They had some success with the action Lion King and Aladdin. I thought Aladdin did well, but I thought the Lion King flopped. Didn't Aladdin do way better than everybody expected? And then, like, I thought Lion King flopped. Because I remember watching Aladdin and being like, this was surprisingly not terrible. I didn't say they did great. Yeah, I mean, he did just say some success. So maybe they got enough money to just warrant, you know, continuing to do it or something. Dwayne in a huge wig. Yeah, man, are they going to make him wear a big old wig? You know what I mean? Live action Beauty and the Beast with Emma was amazing. Yeah, that wasn't too bad. You kind of cheat with Emma Watson though. You could put her in anything and people would think it's charming. You know what I'm saying? You could have her read the phone book. A new Turtle Beach controller, not first party, but kind of nutty. Oh, is it gonna have like an interactive touchscreen in the middle? Huh. I didn't think Lion King was awful. It was just weird. I think the talking came across as weird. You know? Ouch. I think the talking came across as weird. It didn't, because they went for the realism. I don't know. Do you have any Discord voice effects on? No, I don't do anything. I don't do any After Effects. My voice comes in pure through. I have an analog mixer. It goes into the Focusrite, and then the Focusrite goes into the computer. Like, that's it. In the handheld design space, you can only be so powerful before you essentially create a handheld sauna. We quite literally don't have the technology yet for more powerful mobile SoC. Yeah, but what all the stuff that we heard rumored about the next Switch, Wheeze? Is any of that viable for keeping it cool but powerful? Or you when you talk about that, you're just talking about it'll be a big jump for the Switch, but it wouldn't necessarily be a big enough jump for what people are going to expect from a PlayStation device. Because I think that'd be the biggest problem, is they've really, really pushed the envelope with the PlayStation games. Ultimately, you still have the major issue of mobile, which is heat. I just heard Beyonce. I couldn't get over her because the voice is so distinct in Lion King. I'm gonna say something that's gonna upset people. So my daughter really likes the song "This Girl Is on Fire" from that one. There was a cartoon movie recently that used it. Was it Sing 2 or whatever it's called? I forget what the name of the movie is. She wanted the song added to her playlist that she listens to at night. And I was like, girl, I can't find it. I'm just going to put the original version on your playlist. I'll put the Alicia Keys version on. And my daughter was like, this isn't as good. I was like, excuse me? Don't you be talking about Alicia Keys that way. And then she came to me a few days later and she's like, I actually like it. She's like, it's good, but I still prefer the other one. I still prefer the other one. You know, what's funny is, to my daughter, though, the first version she heard, that's the song. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the song. So for her, it was like, this is different. I don't like it, if that makes sense. I just thought it was funny. I was like, was like, girl, you would upset so many people right now. Like, Alicia Keys she's hailed as one of the greatest vocalists. Like, what are you saying? Everybody loves her. Oh, man. Let me set up redirect. Let's go debrief with members. We're not taking anybody hostage today. We don't really need to. We added 83 members to the day. So let me give you guys a link. What does that have to do with Beyonce? It just made me think. Somebody said they just couldn't stop not hear Beyonce and the Lion King, and it just made me think of what my daughter said about Alicia Keys. How do you not connect those two in your mind? Like, how's that story not connected? All right, here we go. All right, I think this will work. Yeah, this link will work. Oh, for frick's sake. They make it so hard to send messages quickly on YouTube. All right, sent the alert in there. If you guys want to come with us, you can become a member right now. Click the join button. It's $5 a month. You can hang out for these debriefs, all right? And you can use the link in chat if you prefer not to do redirect. Hey, thanks so much for clicking on this. Another members debrief. This one will be a little bit shorter. We did 2 live streams today. If you're a member or you newly got a membership, make sure you're in the Discord. The link below in the description has a link to the Discord. It's a great place to hang out. You won't miss out on all the extra content. My wife and I did a stream on Friday night. It was a blast. We'll be doing another one this Friday. You guys also unlocked the Star Wars Watch Party, more horror double headers. You guys hit great membership numbers in March. We're still a little bit shy of the 3,000 Just Dance stream, but you guys definitely hit enough members in March to do another Star Wars Watch Party, which we're going to move on to episode 4. We'll do that one Saturday this month. That's a great reason to be in the Discord so you don't miss those announcements. And then we'll do another double header horror weekend. So make sure you're in there. Let me end the previous stream. I'm going to end the previous stream that was about Diablo 4.